Well, this is the BSA. This is the BSA rebuild. I'm going to call it part 2 because this is the second day I'm filming it. Probably isn't part 2 because I'm probably going to condense more. But anyway, lots of things to be revealed. I've discovered this motor actually was partially rebuilt. Well, I say partially rebuilt. This con rod here. Which one is it? Yeah. That I showed yesterday that had been run. You can see where the bearings were spinning in it, and it's in rough shape. That came out of this bike. The crank's been ground. It's got 40,000 shells in it. This is the drive side, which is the usual one to go because the oil pressure, it fails. It fails miserably going through the timing side main bearing bush because it's clapped out. And the first big end, the first rod bearing, is on the timing side, which actually just probably gets enough oil just to keep it going. But the drive side one on the left is the one that gets starved, and that's the one that usually breaks. And that's what happened to this. And the reason I know it's the timing drive side one is because it's got the hole in it, which is the bleed holes for the oil to come out at the end of its run. So that's interesting. The main bearing bushing has also been replaced. It's got a non-steel backed main bearing bush in it, and I don't know what size it is, it's hard to tell, but I did discover this is the thick flange one, which I don't think is compatible with this crankcase. Because there's barely room for the thrust washer. Yeah. Apparently the earlier ones were supposed to be thicker, later ones are thinner. Actually, I guess it would fit in there. I don't know. I'm tempted to whip that one out and just maybe skim it on a lathe. Just stick it down, because that way then the thrust washer can lock in there properly. Camshaft, I've cleaned it up. I was wondering if that was going to be any good, but I'm going to polish it up. There's a little bit of corrosion on there, but I've got away with worse. You wouldn't think you would, because they have to be smooth so that there's no wear on them. But I've polished them up using a bench polisher, and then you clean them off with isopropyl alcohol, and then when I put them in, I always coat them with some sort of graphite compound, which actually works. My last BSA was worse than this. What happened with the last one was that the camshaft was actually worn out, so I replaced it with a corroded one, and I cleaned it up, put it in, a little bit rattly for the first couple hundred miles, and then it quieted right down. And I did 2,000 on that before I sold it, and it just had that lovely top end rustle, that's sort of that's characteristic of an engine that's running in really nice, it's in good state of tune. Crankcases are a bit corroded, as you can see. Crankshaft, journals are okay. I'm going to take the stud strap out. I don't know if I think it has been taken out, but I never trust what other people have done, because my usual approach with these is to take the stud strap out, run a solvent tank parts washer through it, typically full of Varsol or paraffin, kerosene, whatever. Varsol's good, it's just cracking stuff, it's horrible, but it works. Clean it out thoroughly, clean everything thoroughly, and then I always polish the journals with other mothers or Solvol, and people will probably, their jaws will drop open in horror. But after all, when you think about it, a lot of machining is done with using carborundum. And what I do is I polish them so that you can actually see, it's a mirror finish basically. And then I wash it off. Well, another run through the parts washer. Then isopropyl alcohol, compressed air, a bit more isopropyl alcohol, so everything's cleaned off thoroughly. Everything's nice and clean. Coat it all with engine assembly compound. Put it back in, and then this is probably a bit early at this stage, but what I normally do is I normally spin the oil pump before I put the on the end of the crankshaft on here. There's a worm drive for the oil pump, and before I put that on, I'll spin the oil pump using the tap drive to build up the oil pressure. So I'll have an oil container feeding into the into the intake side to the oil pump, so I can actually build up the oil pressure before the engine has even done half a turn. And then once you know everything's primed and ready to go, you know it's good. And my last A65, that thing could be steaming hot, and it would never have any oil pressure issues at all. I actually converted it because the early ones don't have an oil pressure takeoff point. I'm trying to do this with the whole camera. That's the oil pressure release valve, and on the later ones there's a casting protuberance there, which has got a 1/8 pipe. I think it's a 1/8 pipe, threaded. Yeah, it's been tapped, drilled and tapped. 1/8 pipe thread. So you can put an oil pressure switch in there or a gauge. What I did with mine is, my last one was I actually managed to get in behind there. I drilled at an angle, and I did drill and tap it, and I put in an oil pressure switch, actually an oil pressure gauge, and that engine was amazing. I remember riding it. This was in Canada. It was 100 degrees plus, what's that, 35, 36, something like that. And I rode it. Bike was steaming hot, and even at idle the oil light wouldn't come on. As soon as I stopped it, straight on. So I knew that was a good engine. I've just realised that timing side main bearing is not even in properly. So that's probably why it's protruding. So I'm going to heat this baby up with a tiger torch and drop that back out again. I'm going to take the gearbox out. Everything works. It turns, but my God, is it ever rusty? Well, again, you can see here the state of this. It'll clean up. It'll polish up. I haven't tried that, I must admit. Oh no, I did try that actually. That does work. I'll try it some other time. No, I did try that when I first bought the bike. So it's cleaning up. I'm going to just double check everything, make sure everything's okay, clean everything up, get all the oil off it, can take the camshaft off actually and polish it up, clean up the wheel. I just ordered a new, I just got this today, which I'm thinking, I haven't opened it yet, is a bench top grinder with a wire wheel attachment. I think that's the wire wheel attachment. So that'll keep me happy for a while. All little bits and pieces, they'll come up quite well. Not brilliantly, but I'm going to use it. The exhaust, that one's taken a bit of a beating. It's got dents in it. But I'm going to use it. And then my thinking is, if I can get the frame and the wheels and all the really important stuff absolutely pristine. So we're talking about new rims here, guys, because this back ones, I've never seen a back one so bad as this. Because normally the back ones, they're covered in oil, so they never rust. But that's bad. The spokes are bad. Funny enough, the spokes on the front, I've almost reused them. I mean, I'm not going to, but the nipples are clean. The spokes, they'd clean up beautifully. So I think that's too bad to save. It is too bad to save. So, which is too bad. But as I said yesterday, I do happen to have a couple of rims. So those are going to go on. Clean the frame up. The head bearings are actually in really good shape. They look like they've been replaced not that long ago. So they're actually in really good shape. Nothing much else I've done yet. It's all chaotic in here. It's a mess. It looks like a bomb's gone off in here. Those are the rod bearing journals. I'm going to find a nice little box for those and put them, keep them safe somewhere before I damage them. And so for the time being, that's about it. The shocks. Again, there is my philosophy on stuff is stuff that's really hard to later replace. Just do it. The wheels, frame, that sort of stuff. The shocks, they're pretty bad, but I might have a go because they come apart. They can take the collets out from the top there. I don't know if you can see the split collets. The lights aren't great here. Yes, they are the split collets. So this will come apart. Take them apart. They're not leaking. I can probably get a passable finish on it. Probably the silver part I'll paint black. It'd look like crap after all once it's been compressed, 40 million times with bumps. But I don't know. Maybe I'm going to see. But I think I'm going to use them again, and then that'll give me time to save up for some new ones. This is a oily rag restoration basically. So I'm going to make the engine perfect, the frame good, perfect. The rest of it, I'll bolt the bits back on like the mudguard there. You can see it's got some rust tarnish, rust marks in it, but I'll use it. That's okay. It's a good original mudguard. Might even get that re-chromed at some point. The headers are good. There's 2 oil tanks. This one here must be an older one because it's got a different. I've never seen that before. It's got an actual screw top on it. Whereas this one's got the more traditional. You know, you just push down on it and half a turn you unscrew it. Tank came up okay. This side is lovely. This side isn't so lovely. As you can see, it's been lead filled. So I don't know. I might try and polish that with a bench polisher and clear coat it. I don't know how that's going to look. It's an experiment, and if that doesn't work, I'm just going to paint it. I'm just going to do like I did on my last one, red and black panels on the side rather than silver. Painting them silver just looks like junk, so I won't bother with that. The seat, yeah, that's a big job. I'm almost tempted just to buy a new seat because the foam is $175. The seat cover I think is about £80. So we're not far off a new seat, so I think that's possible. I might just replace that. Forks is good, need new seals for it. I can't detect any wear in there, but I might replace the little brass bushings anyway. Just because they're thin pieces, but they seem actually pretty good. Much better than on my last one. Bars are good. Yeah, it's a few pieces missing, as I say. One of the things missing is the camshaft. Where's the other crankcase? Inside here, there's a little breather disc and a spring. And I found the breather disc, but I can't find the spring. The sprocket is a 19 tooth. So I'm going to replace that. It's worn anyway. It's hooked. Yeah, it's hooked. I'm going to replace that anyway. I think I've actually got one. Again, that's in Canada. I've got a whole bunch of stuff for this. The crankshaft is missing the drive side main bearing. It's also missing the shim cup and the shims. Fortunately, I have a set of shims. I just don't have a shim cup, and I think I have a main bearing. But again, that's in Canada, so we'll have to see. So I'm going back in August, so I'm going to make a big list of stuff to bring back, including the rims. So my luggage is going to be heavy. And for now, that's about it really. The head I haven't even looked at yet. There's no doubt in my mind that the guides are leaking. A65s, yeah, they're probably going to be done, so probably putting new guides in those. I've never had one yet, but I haven't had to do that. My last one had done like 11,000 miles, and that was bad. And this was done 15,000, and judging by the fact that it blew a rod, which it did, it's going to be. It wasn't ridden gently, and judging by the fact that the exhaust was scraped on the underside as well, just down here. So the guy was like, he liked to scratch on corners. This one here is pretty. Oh, this one looks like it's been thrown down the road. Actually, it's all sideways scratched. So yeah, he liked. He was a spirited rider. Not sure which one it was. The last one that owned the bike is now dead. The original owner is actually still alive, and he lives. I think he lives in Ayr. Apparently, the guy I bought the bike off knew him, knows him. So that might be worth following up. But he had it for just over a year, I think, according to the paperwork. And then it was taken over by the second owner, which is the one that the owner I got it from hadn't ever registered it. He bought it as a parts project and just felt a bit overwhelmed by it. A lot of work to do. But so it was never registered. So the last person to actually ride it and register it was the second owner. The last owner, technically the owner, even though he wasn't registered owner, was the third owner, and I'm the fourth. So that's the next step. And there's the old license plate there, so I'm hoping that I can register the beastie without too much complication. I don't know what the process is like these days in England, but I know it's not as easy as it used to be. So for now, that's it. So that is the end of part 2 of the BSA A65 restoration project. Oh, I couldn't get one more last thing. couldn't get the centre stand off because there's a shaft that goes through a spacer bushing in the centre, and it's welded on with rust. So I'll be getting something pretty hot on there, I think, to undo that, but it'll come off. So, and that's it. Okay, thanks for watching.